At 63, I have more energy than I did at 45. If someone had told me that 20 years ago, I wouldn't have believed them. And the reason why has nothing to do with genetics, a secret supplement, or the perfect routine. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 things that were quietly draining my energy and how changing those increased my energy, so you can begin to do the same. Let's start with the first thing, the one I didn't even recognize as a problem until years later. It goes back to a decision I made when I was 56. At the time, I had a stable, respected career after more than 30 years in the corporate management in Tokyo. It was the kind of job many people spend their whole lives working toward. And I walked away from it, not because I was unhappy with the work or because I lost my passion for it. I just knew I wanted to start something different. For more than 30 years, alongside my corporate career, I'd been trained under a Japanese key energy master. The deeper I went, the more I realized how much there still was to discover and how much I wanted to share. I didn't know exactly where it would lead, whether that was a new career or not. I just knew there was a whole world I hadn't stepped into yet, and something was telling me to take the leap. But there was another reason I finally left corporate management. I thought that once I hit 60, my energy would only go downhill from there, that I might not have enough left to starting something completely new. So I told myself, if I ever wanted to step outside the safety of the corporate world, it had to be now, before I run out of time, before I run out of energy. But here's what I didn't know back then. That kind of thinking was quietly taking energy away from me, not protecting it. Because when you keep telling yourself that your time and energy will run out once you reach a certain age, your body starts to follow that story. You start noticing every tired day a little more, and every time you don't have the energy you used to, it begins to feel like proof that you are getting older. And without realizing it, you begin expecting less from yourself. Now, looking back, here's what I know for sure. Energy doesn't decline with age. It can actually keep increasing well past 60 and well past what I thought was possible when I was 56. I'm a proof of that. At 63, 7 years beyond the age when I thought my energy would start declining, I have more energy than I ever had. I actually studied jazz dance and boxercising after 60. Both things I do every week now and never would have imagined myself doing at this age. Yes. So here's something I want to ask yourself. What decisions have you made or not made because you assumed your energy would only decline from here? That false assumption might be stopping you from creating the life you want at over 40. And once my assumptions about declining energy changed, I had to question something else. Something I'd always relied on, but that wasn't giving me what I needed anymore. As I moved through menopause, I started noticing something that didn't make sense. There were times when I'd rested well over the weekend and still woke up on Monday morning feeling tired, as if my battery has never fully recharged. Of course, I assumed I simply needed more rest. So I'd sleep longer, take a 15-minute nap whenever I could, and give myself even more downtime. But nothing really changed. Then I started reading more about what happens to a woman's body during the menopause transition. especially how the body can become less efficient at shifting out of stress and into recovery. That's when I realized something. Rest and recovery aren't always the same thing. I had already practiced breathing and body clearing techniques for many years, but during this transition, I became much more intentional about how I spent the hour before bed. I dimmed the lights, did some gentle stretching, played calming music, and used breathing and clearing practices to help my body settle before I slept. And that completely changed how refreshed I felt the next morning. These practices weren't new to me, but during the menopause transition, they became my rescue routine. Once I understood that, I stopped asking myself, how can I rest more? I started asking, how can I help my body recover? That shift in the question changed what I did whenever I felt tired. Instead of just trying to rest more, I started focusing on what actually helped me feel fully recharged. So here's something I want you to ask yourself. What is one thing you can do today to help your body recover? Because once you start asking that question, you'll begin noticing what your body actually needs, and it may surprise you. But once I changed the way I recovered, I began to notice another pattern, one that had shaped the way I used my energy for most of my life. And you may be doing the same thing. For years, I thought that if I wanted more energy, I just needed to try harder. I go to my key practice class in the evening after a long day of work. And I wanted to do everything right, learn faster, get it perfect. I paid close attention to every movement my mentor taught us. But the harder I tried, the less I felt the energy. My body became tighter instead of freer. Then one evening, I started watching my mentor more closely. He wasn't forcing anything. He was playing, having fun, and even laughing. Nothing about him looked serious or effortful. And yet, everyone around him was amazed by his energy. This man in his 70s, moving with more ease and vitality than people half his age. That's when something clicked. I was carrying something heavy. I had to get everything right. And without realizing it, that pressure was tightening my body instead of allowing energy to move through it. So I tried something different. Instead of judging every step, I started to simply enjoy the practice and be more playful. I started connecting with the people around me. The shift didn't happen overnight, but as I continued, my body softened. My movements felt lighter. The energy I've been trying so hard to create finally started to flow. Even now, I still catch myself carrying that invisible weight from time to time. Not just in practice, but in the projects I take on and even in making these videos. It still creeps in. The difference is that I notice it much sooner now. And when I do, I know how to let it go. Because trying harder usually tightens my body instead of freeing it. And when I release what I'm carrying, the energy starts moving again on its own. So here's something I want to ask yourself. Is there something you've been pushing harder on and feeling more drained instead of more energized? Because once you start noticing that hidden tension earlier and release it, the energy begins to flow more freely. But that shift led me somewhere I didn't expect. There was another belief I didn't fully recognize until I got older. Something about what my body could still do. For as long as I can remember, I loved dancing. My mom took me to ballet classes as a little girl. But even then, my body wasn't very flexible. Doing splits hurt. Raising my legs high was difficult. By 6th grade, I stopped going. More than 50 years passed. Then, when I turned 60, I saw a brochure at my gym for a jazz dance class. The teacher looked so graceful and full of energy. My first thought was, I'm probably too old to start something like this. But I walked in anyway, and I was surprised. There were women in their 70s and even their 80s dancing alongside me. So I decided to stay. Many of my classmates had been coming for 5 years or longer, and I often heard them say, at this age, it's really hard to improve. When I heard that, I found myself nodding a little, but at the same time, it made me feel sad and small. I could actually feel my energy shrinking just from hearing those words. And that's when I quietly asked myself, what if it isn't true? My body still felt awkward, not very flexible. Some movements felt impossible, really. But I kept coming back every week. The shift didn't happen overnight, but gradually. Something surprised me. My body started becoming more flexible. Movements that once felt impossible began to feel easier. I noticed my body was still adapting. And once the changes started coming, they came quickly. That experience reminded me of something I now hear so often from women I work with. After a certain age, my body just can't change anymore. But what I discovered in that jazz dance class is that our bodies are often far more adaptable than we think. Oftentimes, it isn't our age that's holding us back. It's the story we've been believing about our age and what we are no longer capable of. So here's something I want you to try this week. Choose one small movement you've been avoiding because you assumed you couldn't do it anymore. Maybe it's reaching a little higher, squatting a little lower, walking a little further than you usually do. Just stay with it for a few days and notice how your body responds. You may be surprised. And that brings me to the biggest shift of all, the one that changed not just how I manage my energy, but where I believed it came from in the first place. For years, I thought energy was something I had to find somewhere outside myself. I saw people who seemed naturally energetic, charismatic teachers, inspiring leaders in the corporate world, and I assumed they simply had something I didn't. That started to change when I began studying key energy. I still remember my mentor saying, "You already have energy inside you. Every cell in your body is creating energy at this moment, and you can increase it." To be honest, I didn't fully understand what that meant. But as I kept practicing, something shifted. I wasn't just feeling better. I started to feel energy moving through my own body, almost like a gentle current of air flowing from my own hands. I wasn't waiting to receive energy anymore. I was learning how to create it with more intention. Even now, I still see this playing out around me. At my gym, there's an instructor who is incredibly energetic, always smiling, encouraging everyone. People rush to book her classes. And after class, I often hear women say, "She gives me so much energy," or I just feel healthier being around her. I completely understand what they mean. She's a wonderful instructor. But now I quietly ask myself, are they feeling her energy or are they reconnecting with the energy that was already inside them? And she simply reminded them it was there? Because that's what I come to believe. The people around us can open a door, but the energy that walks through it is already yours. Once I began seeing it that way, something changed in how I carried myself. I stopped waiting for the right person or the right environment to make me feel energized. I keep reminding myself that I already have energy and that I can cultivate more of it. Whoever I'm with, whatever the circumstances, that doesn't mean we don't inspire each other. Of course we do, but inspiration only reminds us of what's already there. So here's something I want you to try this week. Next time you find yourself saying, that person gives me so much energy, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what if they are simply reminding me of the energy that's already inside me? Because that one question changed the way I think about energy. And in many ways, it changed my life. None of these 5 shifts happened overnight. They came from years of paying attention, questioning what I thought I knew, and slowly building a different relationship with my own energy. And that's exactly the kind of conversation I continue in my newsletter. In each email, I share stories, insights, and natural practices that had helped me build and sustain more energy through the real ups and downs of midlife. They aren't just theories. They are things I actually living and noticing that you can explore for your own body too. Some of what I share there, I don't talk about anywhere else. If today's video started something for you, if you're beginning to question some of what you believed about your body and your energy in midlife transition, I'd love you to come along and see what you notice. The link is just below this video. And if you're wondering how I actually put this into practice, the next video walks you through the 5 steps I use to build and sustain my energy through midlife. I'll see you there. ありがとうございます。